The man in the shadows, the town of Pinewood, tucked away in the southern United States, was a place that time seemed to have forgotten. Its charming streets and picturesque landscapes masked the deep-rooted prejudices that lingered beneath the surface. For years, the unspoken rules of division had governed the lives of its residents. People didn't mix too much, didn't ask too many questions. And when the Johnson family, a black family of 5, moved into the heart of Pinewood, whispers began to spread. The Johnsons were a tight-knit family. Marcus Johnson, the father, was a quiet, unassuming man in his late 40s, with a calm demeanor that could mask a storm. His wife, Leela, was warm and fiercely protective of their 3 children, 14-year-old Deshawn, 10-year-old Maya, and 6-year-old Kendra. They had moved to Pinewood for a fresh start, unaware that their new beginning would come with challenges. The trouble started small. A slashed tire here, a broken mailbox there. Anonymous notes with hateful slurs slipped into their mailbox. Marcus would simply throw them away, never letting his children see. But the tension in the air was palpable. Most of the townsfolk kept their distance, watching the Johnsons with wary eyes, while a small but vocal group made their disdain clear. Among the most vocal was a local group of men who called themselves the Pinewood Sons. They were a self-styled gang of racists who believed they were the guardians of the town's purity. Led by a man named Travis Colton, they made it their mission to intimidate the Johnsons at every turn. One evening, Travis and his crew decided to escalate their campaign of terror. They gathered at a local bar, fueled by liquid courage and hatred, and hatched a plan to confront Marcus Johnson directly. They didn't know much about him, just that he was quiet, kept to himself, and worked long hours. To them, he was an outsider who didn't belong. The confrontation. It was a Friday night when the gang pulled up to the Johnsons' modest home in their trucks, headlights cutting through the darkness. Marcus was on the porch, sipping a cup of coffee, having just returned from work. He watched them approach, his expression unreadable. Travis stepped out of his truck, a smirk on his face, and called out, "Evenin', Mr. Johnson. Thought we'd come by and introduce ourselves properly." Marcus didn't respond. He just sipped his coffee, his eyes steady on the men before him. "You've been real quiet since you moved in," Travis continued. "We like to know who we're dealing with in this town." "What do you do for a living, Mr. Johnson?" Marcus set his cup down slowly. For a moment, it seemed like he might not answer. Then, in a calm voice, he said, "I'm a forensic investigator." The silence that followed was deafening. The smirks faded from the gang's faces as they processed his words. Marcus stood, his towering frame suddenly seeming larger in the dim light. "That's right." He continued, his voice steady. "I work with the FBI. My job is to track down people who think they can get away with things they shouldn't. People who think they're untouchable. I've spent 20 years putting men like you behind bars." Travis's face turned pale, and the other men shifted uncomfortably. They hadn't expected this. To them, Marcus had been just another black man they could intimidate. But now, standing before them was someone who could destroy their lives with a single phone call. "I know your names," Marcus said, stepping closer. "I know your faces. And if you ever come near my family again, I'll make sure every one of you spends the rest of your lives looking over your shoulders. Understand?" Travis opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. The men retreated to their trucks, their bravado shattered. They drove off into the night, the sound of their engines fading into the distance. The aftermath word of the encounter spread quickly through Pinewood. The Johnsons were left alone after that night, the gang's reign of terror reduced to whispers and avoidance. Marcus continued to go about his life quietly, never mentioning what had happened, but the townsfolk looked at him differently now. Years later, when the Johnsons had long since moved on to a bigger city, the story of the man in the shadows became a local legend. Some swore Marcus had been a secret agent, others said he was a government assassin. The truth was simpler. He was a father who loved his family and would do whatever it took to protect them. Travis Colton and his gang? They faded into obscurity, their power broken, their fear of Marcus Johnson a permanent scar on their pride. And Pinewood, for all its faults, began to change. Slowly, but surreal morale of the story, fear is often rooted in ignorance, but strength and resolve can shatter even the deepest prejudices. Sometimes all it takes is one person to stand firm to make a ripple of change.